Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Nitsahone's Idle Thoughts. In case you didn't know, the picture you see here was posted on Reddit yesterday, and on it there are 4 Aether Revolt cards. These are not cards that Wizards intentionally released, they were leaked one way or another. This is something that seems to happen, at least to a small degree, with most sets these days. However, this video isn't really about the problem of leaks. Instead, I'm just going to discuss these 4 cards, which are our first look at Aether Revolt. The first card we will look at is probably the one that is generating the most buzz, Yahenni's Expertise. Costing the same as Languish, but only giving -3/-3, Expertise also has kind of a strange clause connected to it. It also lets you cast a card for free from your hand, provided that it has a converted mana cost of 3 or less. This is some pretty amazing mana equity. You get 7 mana value for 4 mana, and you're probably killing some of your opponent's creatures, if not all of them. People have been pretty excited about the idea of this card in Modern, when it lets you cast Liliana the Veil for free in addition to killing some things, but I think the card is too clunky and ineffective for Modern, where it won't even kill a ton of creatures against most decks. I think this will likely see play in Standard though, as it is hard to argue with the kind of value it gives you. It is effective against a lot of decks, including Blue-White Flash, where the indestructibility of Selfless Spirit or Avacyn just won't matter, and killing a couple of Spell Quellers in addition to the free cards you get to cast is just bonkers. The card's power is tempered a little bit by the presence of Smuggler's Copter though, which it can do absolutely nothing about, except kill the creatures that could crew it, while also allowing you to play your own Copter from your hand, I guess. But yeah, point is, you should expect this to show up in Standard in some capacity. Obviously it's not great against Green-Black Delirium, but being good against the other big dog in the format right now, Blue-White Flash is pretty relevant. Another one of the cards leaked is Trophy Mage. Trophy Mage is pretty cool because it is a card that is part of a cycle that began all the way back in 5th Dawn with Trinket Mage, and continued in Mirrodin Besieged with Treasure Mage. All 3 are 3 mana 2/2s that let you search your library for an artifact. Trinket Mage and Treasure Mage are staples in Commander, in addition to actually seeing some competitive play. Turns out a 3 mana 2/2 that can tutor for something is actually pretty powerful. However, Trophy Mage likely only really has a shot in Standard, and how good the Mage will be depends on what 3 mana artifacts are around. Note it just says converted mana costs 3, not 3 or less. Obviously we don't know all of the artifacts that cost 3 in Aether Revolt, but we can look at the cards now to see if it is worth it. It can get the most powerful artifacts in the... It can't get the most powerful artifact in the format, Smuggler's Copter, nor can it get Scrap Heap Scrounger, another commonly played artifact, as both cost 2, and I wonder if at some point in testing it could, so they changed it to 3, but let's look at a few of the artifacts already in existence that would be pretty nice. Here are the cards that have seen some play at premier events that this Mage can grab you. Cultivator's Caravan isn't a bad thing to search for, and the Metalwork Colossus decks that are out there might be able to find a place for Trophy Mage, since it can help you find cards like the Caravan to heavily reduce the cost of your Colossus, but I think Glintnest Crane is likely still a better card for those decks compared to the Mage. Dynavolt Tower decks are usually already blue-red based, and being able to search up a tower isn't too bad, although once again, I think running cards that trigger the tower and also search for it, like Anticipate, or other cards, Draw Effects or Scry Effects, are probably going to be better. I don't see Pummeler and Trophy Mage getting along at all, really, as the deck just tries to run energy producers and doesn't really want to deviate from that plan. However, the place I see Trophy Mage perhaps having the most utility is in the decks that run Filigree Familiar. While the merge decks have kind of died out, Trophy Mage might be the kind of card that can help get them going again. Trophy Mage itself is a good card to sacrifice to Elder Deepfiend and friends, since it has a converted mana cost of 3 and it replaces itself, but the fact that it replaces itself with even more card advantage in Filigree Familiar is pretty awesome, and of course the Familiar itself is a good card to sacrifice to emerge creatures too, and let's not forget that it's likely that there are more searchable artifacts in Aether Revolt that will make Trophy Mage even better. So I think it definitely has potential, but not concrete potential like the other card that we looked at. Speaking of 3 converted mana cost artifacts in Aether Revolt, here is one, Scrap Trawler. The Trawler is an interesting card, a 3 mana 3/2 who lets you return an artifact with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to your hand anytime an artifact goes to your graveyard, including the Trawler. It is worth noting that lesser converted mana cost is a new wording. In the past it would have said something like, with converted mana cost less than the artifact that went into your graveyard. Obviously this wording is much briefer. But anyway, in terms of the card itself, I'm not overly impressed with it. Worth noting, it can get back Smuggler's Copters, of course, but the really graveyard-based decks that exist right now aren't that interested in artifacts, so it doesn't really have a home there. Even in Limited, I'm not super stoked about the guy, though if you have a decent number of artifacts, obviously he's a solid card. For now, I think the jury's out on the card. We'll have to see what else Aether Revolt has to offer to really know whether this is any good. The final card is the red card from the picture. Because it is so obscured by the other cards around it, there isn't really a good picture of it, though admittedly most of these pictures haven't been very good. But at any rate, with this card, we'll just look at its text. For 4 mana, you get a 3/2 Human Artificer, and I mean, come on, Wizards. Dude has Rebel in his name, and you couldn't make him a Rebel, but anyway. And when he comes into play, he makes it so an artifact you control can tap to shock your opponent or one of their creatures. This guy's probably a little bit too overcosted for Standard. I think at 3 converted mana cost, he probably had a chance, but at 4, not so much. That said, I think he will be a pretty strong first pick in Aether Revolt drafts, and a card you're pretty pumped about being in your sealed pool. Remember, this is all speculation, since of course I haven't seen the set on the whole, but its Enter the Battlefield trigger is super powerful, and the kind of trigger that even in a worst case scenario, where your Rebel or the artifact you give the ability to gets killed right away, you'll at least get some value, since you can kill something or do 2 to your opponent in response, although if they kill the creature in response to the Enter the Battlefield trigger, you're still getting, the artifact it is, you're still getting some value because it's, a 2-for-1, basically. Should the Rebel be allowed to remain in play for even a few turns, he will quickly make things bad for your opponent. Now, you do need to run artifacts, but if you've been playing Kaladesh Limited, that doing that isn't all that hard, and if you first pick this guy, you'll definitely be valuing them more. Anyway, that's it for this round of spoilers. All are pretty interesting cards, and I'm looking forward to actually playing with them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button. If you have ideas about where these cards might see play, post them in the comments. And if you want to make sure you keep seeing more Magic the Gathering videos like this one, don't forget to subscribe.